Welcome back to the Love You podcast with Evan, Marc, Katz. We're going to learn everything you need to know about dating, relationships, men, and sex in no particular order. Today we're talking about how you and your boyfriend can feel more secure in your relationship. And in the first half of the podcast, we talked about the book Attached and how anxious people may come by their anxieties honestly, but it can be exhausting to be in a relationship with an anxious person. And I also suggested that most of us are sort of hypocrites around this issue. You, and not wrongfully, want a partner to go the extra mile and make you feel safe and make you feel heard and make you feel understood and be a great listener and let you know that he's never going anywhere and that you could be yourself and be insecure around him. You want the guy who gives you all that validation, but you don't want to be the woman who gives your insecure boyfriend that same sort of validation. And I'm guessing that if you're like most people, you think anxious men are somewhat weak and needy. And it's not attractive. And that's the hard part. It's not attractive. It's just human. Let's think about that for a second. Right? What is attractive? Boundless confidence. A guy who never second guesses whether you like him. He doesn't worry about what you think. He is a man who's just following his own passion. He's following his own heart. Right? Problem is, when he's too into his own opinion and doesn't care about your opinion, he could become a bit of a narcissistic tyrant. Right? And then you go to the other end of the spectrum and you have a guy who's like, is everything okay? How are you doing? Do you like me? How's this relationship going? Right? And that's tiring. It's not attractive. Let's talk about what it means to be weak and needy. Because there's a sweet spot, and the sweet spot is vulnerable. Right? Vulnerable is where you can be yourself around someone, but it's not such a drain. It's not like every conversation is your weakness, your insecurity coming to the surface. So there's always a spectrum. People tend to hear these things that push buttons and they'll tend to go black and white. Right? I'm not saying that anxious people are bad. I'm not saying that they should never be in a relationship. I'm saying that anxious people need to be able to curb their own anxiety to be healthy relationship partners. Right? None of us wants to have to continually prop up the ego, right, and constantly apologize for offending someone who has delicate sensibilities. It's a tiring way to be in a relationship. But I'm not speaking from some sort of pedestal. I've been through this. I remember back in the late 90s, I was working at JDate. I was dating someone, and she was awesome. She's still awesome. Still a friend. Smart, strong, successful woman. Very confident, very independent. A little bit masculine. But I was smitten by her. She was a really, really cool girl, and we started dating for about a month. And I couldn't seem to get any traction. I just, we go out, we hooked up a couple times, but at the end of the day, it was like a month in, and things weren't escalating. Right? Just kind of keeping me at a distance. Didn't want to be boyfriend, girlfriend. We worked together. She was kind of keeping things under wraps, and I sort of realized that I was completely, at a certain point, insecure. And again, I had the right to be. She was being avoidant. Now, avoidant doesn't necessarily mean that they are incapable of having a relationship. Basically, she didn't want to have a relationship with me. But either way, why would I want to stay with someone, continue to invest in someone who didn't make me feel special, didn't want to cement our relationship, go public with it? Why would I want to be in a relationship with somebody like that? And that's essentially while I was in a relationship and I was the anxious guy, right, compared to the woman that I was seeing. Ultimately, I'm a secure person, so I didn't let that go on too long. Problem with anxious people is that they think that that's the way relationships are supposed to be. They'll stay for years. They'll get married, right, in a relationship where they don't feel safe. I exited it in a month, which again, it's not to pat myself on the back. It was more, I didn't like the feeling of never knowing where I stood. So I extricated myself from the situation. Right? So if you're a secure person with an avoidant partner, which is what I was, it's going to make you feel anxious and you're most likely to want to get out. The tricky part about this whole thing, and I have to acknowledge it, is that it's so easy to blame your anxiety on a partner. But just because you don't feel secure isn't necessarily, it may be his fault. Right? There's lots of bad guys out there. There's lots of bad communicators out there. There's lots of men with temper issues. And right, there's lots of reasons that you can be with a guy and feel rightfully insecure because he made you feel that way. But there's a huge difference between an avoidant guy, right, a guy who's really not a good boyfriend, and a good guy who doesn't kiss your ass and doesn't read your mind. And that's usually where it gets very blurry. And we're trying to, as always, all we do on the Love You podcast is try to find a measure of objectivity, right? If an impartial moderator was looking at this situation, how would he or she deem it? And people, and this is everybody, feelings tend to be stronger than facts, and it's so difficult when you feel emotional about something and you're looking for someone to blame or someone to lash out to, and it's most likely to be the person right in front of you. And we do this with our coworkers, and we do this with our family members, and we do this with especially with our romantic partners. I remember in my book Why He Disappeared, my wife told a story about how I was talking about some ex-girlfriend of mine. And again, this ex-girlfriend happened to be the worst. I hate to say that; it sounds so negative, but the most challenging relationship I ever had. And it was almost a comical correlation. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever dated, and she was also said some of the meaner things to me that I'd ever experienced in my entire life. Kind of scarred me for a little bit. And she had a moment, and she admitted this in my Why He Disappeared book, where she heard me talk about how beautiful this ex-girlfriend was. And again, this is a sensitive topic, and it made her bristle. But she didn't get upset because I wasn't harping on, oh my God, she was so beautiful, I want to have her back, or I miss her. I mean, the story of that ex-girlfriend is, yes, she was beautiful, but she was also a personal nightmare. Right? So she might have felt a little sting, but it's not like I was being a rude boyfriend or I was putting her down or anything like that. Now, someone else will hear the exact same thing. This woman I dated 15 years ago was the most beautiful person I ever said, and she'll have a meltdown, right? And turn that into a thing, right? Store it in her back pocket. She'll either say something in that moment or start a fight about it, or just build up some simmering resentment that you don't find me attractive, and you're always talking about how all these beautiful women you bedded. Right? You can see how something tiny like that could become really corrosive when it's just a statement. It's just a statement. It's the same way that if my wife dated a millionaire, she dated the richest guy she ever dated, or the guy before me was 25 years old and 6'7". I can't compete with 25 years old and 6'7", right? So he's going to be more. And so it's important to own your own insecurities and try to minimize them, and just realize the person who's with you chose you above all, and that you can't make your insecurities his problem. So to bring this all together, as a woman, you have to realize when your insecurity is the result of your own fears, right? Your own fears of not looking good, being too old, having had other men leave you in the past, putting up with verbally abusive men, rude men, commitment phobic men, right? If your whole past is littered with these type of people, you can make the assumption that every guy is going to be that way, and it's not true. It's just the men that you've chosen, right? Your insecurities, therefore, are the result of your fears as opposed to his behaviors, right? His behaviors, again, a good boyfriend, a secure guy, are largely benign and or clueless. And the important part is to be able to turn it around and realize how you can make an insecure guy feel better. So I want to close with this story, which I really love. I have a client on the East Coast. We're going to call her Alison. She's 41, really wanted to have a family, started dating a guy who was semi-removed from a divorce. He had his heart ripped out by his wife. He was still sad. He knew the relationship was toxic, but he was still pining for her and what he had. And so they start dating. He pulls away, right? She asks me how to handle it. I say, let him pull away. Don't chase him down. Sure enough, the guy comes back. And when he comes back, something clicks in his head and he's all in. And again, this is taking place during my 6-month course. This is like 2-3 months in. And so suddenly my client's got a boyfriend who's really, really into her, is talking about a future, and he's in his mid to late 40s. And he quickly becomes the needy one. Once he realized he was all in on her, he turned into this sort of hapless puppy dog who would try to curry favor with her and try to tell stories at parties that made him sound better, but were really sort of white lies. And she said, I don't know what to do with this guy. I really like him. He's a nice guy. He treats me so well. Where's his confidence? He's killing my attraction to him. I said, here's the thing. This is, again, not gender specific. I said, treat him like he's your husband. Click something in your head. Treat him like he's your husband. Praise him. Tell him how much you love him. Tell him how much you appreciate him. Tell him how cute he looks today. Tell him how great he was in bed. Let him know you're not going anywhere. Just let him know that he's doing a good job and he's safe. Right? Become a great girlfriend. Don't pull away. Lean in. Right? And I swear to God, she leaned in. He relaxed. He felt so much better. He became a more confident man. He became a better man. And he proposed to her in 6 months because she's 41 and wanted to have a kid. Right? She turned her boyfriend into a more confident, likable guy, all because I became a better girlfriend to him during those couple weeks. And now I have a paradigm that I can continue over and over. And this client is probably the only client in Love U who came into the program without a boyfriend and left with an engagement ring. That's how excited this guy was. And everything was heightened by the fact that she was 41 and wanted to have kids. But really great story about how you can transform someone's personality. Now, it's easy for me to talk about how you could transform a guy's personality by being more complimentary, make an insecure guy feel more secure. You want me to tell guys how to do this for you. Unfortunately, I don't have that power necessarily. But I want you to realize that if you are secure, you're going to bring out the best in your partner. Right? The more secure, the more confident, the more complimentary, the better relationship partner you are, for the most part, the better relationship partner you'll have. And if you find that you're an amazing partner, right? If Alison was this way with her guy and he still acted really insecure and weak and needy and always wanting to talk about us and creating drama out of nothing, she'd be perfectly entitled to let him go. I hope you realize that all these things are complicated and that you can't always count on someone to make you feel secure, right? It's not always someone else's job. At a certain point, you have to own your own insecurities and try to shore them up yourself. But a good partner does the best that he can, right, to make you feel secure, and it's worth appreciating when you have a good one. So I really love this. I love this podcast, and I appreciate you being with me today. My name's Marc Katz. This is Love You Podcast. Next week, we're going to be talking about what it means to hate. Right? 4 different kinds of hate. I find hate really interesting topic, especially on the internet. So we're going to talk about hate. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and go to www.evanmarckatz.com. Give me your name and email address, and I will send you free dating and relationship advice until you drop. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.